Today we have with us Tim Kreps, also known as Meriwether Lewis, the retired teacher and living history reenactor. Tim loves to tell stories, and tonight he will share some of the adventures of the Lewis and Clark Corps of Discovery, including some of the truly amazing stories of their close calls. Tim has done this in similar living history programs for groups from third graders to adults, including in-service teacher education, where they share ideas on how to make social studies come alive. Some of Tim's honors in his 33-year teaching career include Ohio Council of the Social Studies High School Teacher of the Year, Teacher of the Year, Sylvania Schools, awarded the Who's Who among American teachers. He has a Master's of Education degree. He was invited as a participant at the Grand Rapids Apple Butter Festival, and he's a member of the Ohio Flintlock and Rendezvous Association. An accomplished teacher and passionate advocate for keeping history alive indeed. We welcome Meriwether Lewis.
Y'all came here tonight to learn about my background and what I was up against, and especially the close calls that we had. My friend, Thomas Jefferson, we lived in the same area, and he knew about my background. He knew that I could be important in his administration. I became his secretary in his administration, and he told me about his desires and his plans to find a Northwest Passage so that he wouldn't have to sail ships so long of a journey around. He trusted me to learn more. Well, I'd grown up learning homeopathic medicine from my mom. It served me well along the journey. He trusted me to put men together. The first man that I thought of was my good friend, William Clark. And he and I together put a crew of discovery together that went all the way to the Mandan villages in South Dakota. We sent the keel boat back at that point and then went on with the permanent crew all the way to the Pacific. Our first camp was Camp Woods, right where the Missouri River comes into the Mississippi. We stationed there, we got our supplies together, and we took off in the keelboat up the Missouri River. But 2 days out of St. Charles, I'm quite a botanist. I collect, I look, I examine, and I record vast journals full of information and live plants pressed into those journals. It was pretty amazing to be able to have all of that information sent back to his presidency. I was saying, 2 days out of St. Charles, all my desires of recording all fauna and animals on this trip, I was not paying much attention to the edge of the cliff. The keelboat is down there on the Missouri, and I'm up here looking at plants and animals, and I misstepped. 300 feet. As soon as I felt myself going, I pulled out my knife and jabbed it into the...
Yourself.
Good thing that was not the sharp edge. Jabbed it into the side of the cliff, and I'd only fallen about 20 feet. Clawed my way back up to the top. The journey almost started without one of the captains. And I don't know if they would have gone on without me, if William Clark would have taken the helm and taken over. I don't know. But one close call. As we moved on, we began to see all these different plants and animals, and unknown to white men. There were so many plants and animals that were just totally unknown to the white man. We saw what I wanted to call a barking squirrel. These things just popped up out of these little holes and then went down, and popped up over here and then went down. And we couldn't catch them. We kept trying. Finally, somebody went and got a bucket and filled it with water and came in and just started pouring it down this one hole, and we caught one live. I was outvoted, but I didn't get to call it a barking squirrel. They called them little prairie squirrels, groundhogs. That's not the word. Prairie dogs. Thanks. You were there. Glad to have another member of the crew there. Don't you hate it when it goes boom? So we gathered live things and furs and plants and animals to send back. Along the way, we would meet with Indian chiefs. We met eventually with 40 different tribes trying to say, we're here for peace. We're not here for war. Along the way, we met with the Teton Sioux, and we brought those Indian chiefs on board the keel boat, and we gave them gifts. We gave them the president's peace medallion, shaking hands on one side, crossed tomahawk and peace pipe on the top, and the president's image on the other side. We had 3 sizes of these. This is the medium size. There was one that was a little bit bigger and then one that was a little bit smaller. And most times we got it right on which chief to give it to. But once in a while, the big chief got the little medal. That wasn't good. They were really perturbed then. And that one of the times it happened was with these Teton Sioux. We put them back onto the canoe, into the shore from the keel boat, and the man wouldn't let go of the rope. The Indian. Clark, I thought, oh my gosh, what's he doing? Clark takes his sword and is about to cut off the guy's arm. 200 Indians are putting arrows against bowstrings. I ordered my men to load on the keel boat, got the swivel guns loaded, little cannons on the front of the bow of the boat, and Black Buffalo, Chief Black Buffalo, said something to this Indian, and the Indian let go of the rope. Had a shot been fired, we might have killed a few Indians, but we would not have survived. We would not have survived. They can knock and let go of 5 arrows to every shot that we can put out there. That we wouldn't have survived. We slept with our guns next to us that night. We didn't know what kind of situation there would be. But we did go on back down on the river, continued on as we went on. Captain Clark and I had these espitoons. It's taller than the room. But these espitoons are a mark of rank. Only high-ranking officers would have espitoons like this. Also, officers would have gorgets, have them dangling from their necks. These were signs of rank, and on the battlefields, this sticks up so that you can see it. And there were ways to signal right flank, left flank, retreat, forward with the spittoon. Sometimes the captains would use them, and we didn't do this, but they would be used for this. They would put them right behind the ranks to keep them in straight file and march right behind them, pushing them along. That's how an spittoon is used. This spittoon came in very handy one day for me. We had been told about these ferocious bears that were out west. We did run into these bears called grizzly bears, and it took so many bullets to bring down this ferocious bear. We recorded 9 shots into one bear, and it wasn't until 2 shots to the brain took him down. So when I am out with my one of my jaunts that I was on, I saw a buffalo. I thought, oh, great, good meat to bring back to camp. Raised my flintlock, shot him dead. Was excited to see my kill. So I'm marching with my rifle in one hand and my spittoon in the other, and up over a little hill. This is prairie land. It's rolling, just rolling. But up over one of those little hills comes one of these huge bears. I did a real novice thing. I didn't reload. The first thing you do when you're hunting or in warfare, when you fire your weapon, you reload. All I had was a 10-pound club in that hand that was short. This was a lot longer. Bear looks at me, I look at him, I drop my gun, he starts after me, I took off, running for the water. I got out there, I'm running, I get out there chest deep into the water. I turned around and I went, "Rah!" Bear stopped, spun around, and took off and went the other way.
Oh.
I'll live to tell about it. When we were at the Mandan villages, before we sent back all of the things to President Jefferson that we could, the live things and the plants and the animals, I sat down at my desk and I penned this. We know we are about now to penetrate a country at least 2,000 miles in width, on which the foot of civilized man has never trodden, entertaining as I do the most confident hope of succeeding in a voyage which had formed a darling project for me for the last 10 years. I could but esteem this moment of my departure as among the most happy of my life. We were so glad to be on the water again. The keelboat had gone back to President Jefferson, and we went on in 6 dugout canoes that we had been working on. At the Mandan villages, Providence played a really huge role. A man, a Frenchman, by the name of Charbonneau, came into camp. He had 2 wives with him, young women, 15, 16 years old. Charbonneau had traded for this one young woman who was a Hadasta from the Hadasta tribe, only she wasn't born Hadasta. She was a slave in the Hadasta tribe. she was Shoshone. And when I learned that she was Shoshone, my interest in Charbonneau really got big, because we needed to talk to the Shoshones in those Stony Mountains just before crossing the Stony Mountains. And we had no way of speaking Shoshone. So Charbonneau, who I didn't think was much of a, he said he was a boatman. I just didn't vibe with that. I didn't think he really had it, but he had this wife. So we made a deal with him to bring him on as a boatman and bring his pregnant 15-and-a-half-year-old wife, Sacagawea, with him. I want to tell you right now, if Sacagawea would not have been on our trip, we would not be coming home. We would not be coming home. These 40 tribes that we encountered, every single one of them knew that a war party does not have a woman with a papoose and baby. They never saw us as a war party, as a threat to them. They may have not liked the trade sometimes, but they never saw us as a threat to them as a war party. The brightest thing that we ever did. Oh my gosh, one time a squall came up. These little pirogues, they were called. They were boats that were shaped like a bow on both ends, wide enough from you to me, and could hold goods and supplies. They could also put up a sail. Charbonneau had his sail up, wind with him going up the river, and a squall came up and swung his pirogue around, and he all of a sudden lost it. He wasn't really the boatman that everybody said he was supposed to be. He lost it. And that boat is starting to swing around. In the meantime, water's coming in. Sacagawea, with baby in hand, just reaches out and starts grabbing things that are floating away. Our journals, the equipment to shoot the azimuth and figure out where we were, all boxed up. Other important papers. And if it wouldn't have been for one of the other men in the Pierre Cruzet, he literally took his gun and said, "Pick up that tiller now or you're a dead man." Mm-hmm. And he picked up the tiller and managed to get the boat right again. That was really something. Well, when we finally got near the Shoshone Indians, I was with two other men, and we finally saw 3 women. They were, must have been like a grandma, daughter, and baby, toddler. And when we approached them, the middle woman ran off. And the grandma and the younger child went down on their knees and did this. They thought they were going to die. I got to the older woman and I had her stand, and I gave her beads. The blue beads were the really special ones. I gave her a sewing awl that I had around my neck. This is a piece of metal that's been sharpened. Natives could use bone for sewing awls. A lot of people don't realize how important a sewing awl is. You can't sew leather like this without a sewing awl. You have to pre-punch the hole. And then you can use a bone needle. If it's after trade time, you can use a metal needle to thread either the sinew, or if it's trade time, other thread through, but it has to be pre-punched. She was very happy to see that, but she was most happy to see this, because I took this vermilion out, put some on my fingers, and went to her cheeks and rubbed it on her cheeks. International sign of peace. International sign. Good thing I did that. As soon as I did that, 40 horses are coming up. The chief and his men are ready to do us in. And she says, do them no harm. They have trade goods. I believe they're here to help us. We eventually got to see the chief, Chief Kamehameha, and again, Sacagawea played such an important role. To communicate with the chief in Shoshone, Sacagawea spoke Shoshone. For me to communicate, I had to talk through Labiche, who spoke English and French. Labiche spoke French to Charbonneau, and Charbonneau spoke Hadasta because Sacagawea had grown up for many years as a slave in the Hadasta village, knew Hadasta, to Sacagawea, and then Sacagawea, Shoshone, to Chief Kamehameha. Have you ever played that game called telephone? Back and forth. Then lo and behold, Sacagawea starts crying. Oh my gosh, what's happening? She stands up, takes her blanket off of her shoulders, walks up to the chief and puts the blanket around his shoulders as a sign of endearing love and caring. Chief looks at her and she says something to him and they hug. Chief Kamehameha was her brother. Her brother. And I thought, I think we're going to get the horses. And we did get horses. My first look over the first peak in the Stony Mountains, you call them the Rocky Mountains, wasn't anything like the Appalachians that I was used to back east. The Appalachians, you get up to a peak and you basically can say, okay, there's the end. The Stony Mountains, I looked and there was crest after crest after crest that we had to get over. It was very hard, very hard. We had starvation times. We had to eat candles, the tallow in the candles. We boiled moccasins to get as much nourishment out of the leather as we could. Sacagawea saved the day many times by taking her digging stick and going and digging up roots. We had to kill a horse at one of the camps. Called that camp in our journals Horse Kilt Camp. That's why the horse hide and the horse skull are here in my camp this evening. We eventually made it over the Stony Mountains. We were on this huge body of water. Come to find out it was called the Columbia River. And Clark writes down, put it in the journal, because he thinks he sees the ocean in view with a big bay. It was another 2 days before we actually saw the Pacific Ocean. When we got there, we had to decide, where are we going to build this fort to winter over? We had a black man with us, a slave, York. York was William's slave. He had devotion to William Clark. he and Sacagawea, I guess you would call them minorities. And get this is recorded in government records the first time that a woman and a slave voted for where we were going to build Fort Clatsop. A woman and a slave, recorded. I think she did such a good job that she ought to have a coin minted after her. You know, I think she should. I really do. We had 12 days. 12 days at Fort Clatsop that were not raining. Only 6 days where we actually saw the sun. We sewed moccasins. We tried to protect our gear. We tried to protect from the Indians. The Nez Perce and the Clatsop Indians, they were, and some of the Squamish Indians, they were thieving after our goods. They wanted our stuff. Not even my air rifle would, threaten them, so to speak, which did work fairly well across the plains. My air rifle had, it was silent but deadly. Silent but deadly. And the natives never knew how many of those air rifles we had hidden in the keelboat. Only had one. But we didn't let them know that. They were very impressed with that. They were very impressed. Finally, after boiling down salt water to get salt to take back with us to salt our meat and preserve, and making enough moccasins, we were able to head, but we're so anxious to go back. We took off a little bit early, and we actually had to double back to a camp and wait out about another week of winter before we could carry on. That we did. We retraced our steps. At one point, going back though, we decided to split up, which nobody did that in military history, but we did. We split up here. Clark went down through the Yellowstone and on the Yellowstone River to come up this way. I went this way and explored the Meriwether River here, and then was to meet him here. When I explored the Meriwether River, we encountered Blackfeet Indians. The Blackfeet were notoriously bad. Well, we slept with our rifles right next to us that night also. And finally I wake up. Somebody is yelling, "Captain, Captain, they're stealing our horses!" So I grabbed my rifle, I ran, and I saw this Indian. He turned on me and fired. I felt the breeze of the bullet go by my ear. Talk about a close call. Shot him dead. Before we left, we were in a hurry to get out of there, but before we left, I took one of the peace medals and put it around this native dead Indian's neck. Not the sign of shaking hands, but the sign of President Jefferson. I wanted to tell them, if you mess with the United States, you mess with somebody much, much bigger than you are. Put that around his neck, and then we hightailed it in a hurry. We got back to our canoes, and when we finally felt that we were safe, went along a day or two, getting close to this meeting point. We're out hunting. elk were prevalent. What color's an elk? Brown, tan, blends in with the environment, right? I had my buckskins on that day. Not these cloth pants. I heard a shot, and then I felt the shot. Right here. And I yelled out, "Indians!" And I'm limping back to the canoe. There were no Indians. Cruzette, who saved the day with Charbonneau, remember? You get the tiller or you're dead. I think Cruzette shot me. I think he thought I was an elk. Poor guy. He had a patch on one eye. So I wonder if that's where that saying, maybe we kind of started it. Blind in one eye and can't see out of the other. I don't know, maybe. We did meet up with Clark really quickly after that. We had learned enough medicine, how to take care of wounds, how to treat people. I had a very painful ride down the Mississippi River for quite a few days because Clark took a ramrod, attached a cloth to the end, and every day ran it through that wound and out the other side to keep it from healing on the outside and going septic on the inside. He kept me alive. Of course, I'm on top of all the gear, laying there like this in this canoe going down the river. Nothing but my pride showing. But it healed. It healed. The men got excited as we're getting closer and closer to St. Louis. Closer and closer, I should say, to St. Charles first, and then we take the bend in the Mississippi River and go right straight down short ways to St. Louis. They got so excited when they saw this animal. They just were overjoyed. What animal do you think they got excited about?
Beaver.
Four-legged animal. It's telling them you're getting close to home. What'd you say?
Cow.
A cow. They saw a cow, and oh my gosh, you talk about putting more effort into the strokes to get home. We got into St. Louis. They gave us a volley of 3 shots and shouted, "Huzzah! Huzzah! Huzzah!" Why were they so excited? We were gone 2 years, 4 months on a journey that no one expected anyone to return from. Thank you. I wanted to get this fact straight. When we got back, when the Corps of Discovery arrived, I wanted to be in Tim Kreps and not Meriwether Lewis to make these comparisons, but it'd be like the first time man went on to the moon. And we had our hearts in our throats for those astronauts. Kind of more recently, was in 23 when they went down in that diving bell to explore the Titanic. Explorers, and gave their lives to that exploration. So, these are things that are kind of hard to. We just the Lewis and Clark expedition. We talk about Lewis and Clark. They never did find the Northwest Passage, but they did discover 178 plants and 122 animals that were new to science, quote unquote, in their journals, the way they wrote it. They weren't new to the Native Americans, but almost 300 plants and animals were new to the white men. And these pressed plants and live animals and things that Lewis sent back were quite astounding to have that. One thing that I wanted to show you, making fire and having a workable gun that uses flint and steel was really super important. The idea of making fire, we can find certain kinds of plants. I know flax has this kind of a core to it. And that's basically how you get hemp and make rope. I took rope and undid it to get this. And in this little nest, I've placed some char cloth, some belly button lint, and some birch bark to help once the heat is generated to catch on fire. If I just have regular cloth in here and don't have char cloth, is a short name for charcoal cloth. You put strips of cloth or patches of cloth into a tin, little hole in it, throw that in the fire, and when it starts to smoke, that smoke will catch on fire. And the flame will go down, 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 and when it goes out, I kick this out of the fire, and I have a stick ready whittled that'll fit into that hole because I don't want any air to get in here. And when it's cooled down, I can open it up, and I'll find inside the white cloth that has been turned to charcoal. That catches a spark. When you see people on TV or whatever taking a flint and steel, and all of a sudden there's a fire, the only way there's a fire is if they're using a magnesium rod with a knife, where that will take a shower of sparks and it will start a fire. But traditional flint and steel, you got to catch that spark. And that's how they lit pipe. That's why so many people smoke pipes. You take that little black piece, you put it on your knee, strike the flint and steel onto your knee, but you'll see a little red ember, put it into the tobacco that's already in the bowl of the pipe, get your tobacco lit. Or put a stick in a fire and bring it up and light it that way. We'll go outside in a moment and see if we can light that flint and steel fire. This is a flintlock muzzle-loading rifle. It needs the flint. Well, should just get it out here and show you. I made this sheath for it so that it kept. Also made my pants. First thing that I made, I should just tell you, I got into this muzzle-loading reenactment group, the Rendezvous Buckskin organization, and I wanted to dress the part, old-time dress, and I did not want to be spending the kind of money that they were spending on leather to make chap and make pants out of leather. They're uncomfortable. when it's cold, when it's wet. So I thought a Voyageur would be the ticket. So wool pants and wool capotes. It's like a big bathrobe, but it's a big cover up. And I found that I could not have to pay $150 for a Whitney blanket if I went to Toronto, but Army Navy surplus red wool blanket, thin, had stains on it, got it for $10. So I bought a bunch of those. And I said to my wife, I said, Joan, will you help me sew this? And she said, sure. And I said, well, here's my pattern. She said, oh, you'll have to cut it out and get ready. I don't know anything about that. So I cut it out using coffee tins for the armholes and stuff like that. She didn't want to mess with it. So I got it all cut out. And she says, I said, okay, ready to go. And she said, well, get the sewing machine down. And we had it stored up here on a shelf. I got it down, set it on the table. Oh, okay, I'm ready. She said, well, plug it in. Okay, I plugged it in. I said, okay, I'm ready. She said, well, sit down. I said, I thought you said you were going to help me. She said, I am. And then she said the words that really stuck because she knew that this would get me, because she says, after all, you don't want your friends to know that you didn't make this yourself. So I sewed that capote and then did all the blanket stitching around it. And I made one for my son and one for my daughter. And I made these pants. I made some wool pants. And I'm just pleased as heck that I still fit in these. I have been wearing these. I put these on tonight and I thought, you know what? How many years? Decades. I'm just blessed to keep the same weight. So back to the rifle. This is made from curly maple. That's what gives it this kind of tigery, zebra-y look. It's hard, soft as it moves along. You have to be very careful when you're carving because it is hard, soft. You can gouge. So my friend Frank, he said, I'll help you. He had made 6 rifles. His first one started out being very thick and bulky. And he said, I'll help you if you trust me. We'll get it thin and it'll look just like it was made back in the 1700s. And this is not a kit gun. This is made from a block of wood. And we had everything that we needed when I went to the gun shop, and I got my block of wood. So 3 things that you need for a rifle. What do you need? You have everything. When you have everything ready to go, you have everything: lock, stock, and barrel. Everything ready to go, and you have everything lock, stock, and barrel. What else can I share with you? Lead is very heavy. Lead's very heavy. Have you ever heard somebody say, get on over here, get the lead out? If you're carrying lead, for your rifle in your pouch, your shooting pouch or whatever, it's a heavy job. Let me put on, would you hold that there for a second? We're going to shoot a blank. That's what we're getting prepared to do here. We're going to end with a bang. So, the first thing that you have to do is pour powder down the barrel. You measure that powder out. Yeah. Be nice if I had my measure handy.
This is all while the grizzly's coming in.
Yeah. Oh, there it is. Got twisted around. So we measured them out. Many times they would use a fiddle, what do you call it, turner?
Peg.
Peg?
Yes.
Thank you. Peg, I'll try to remember that. I carved this one because I didn't have an extra fiddle peg laying around, but
I do.
oh, I've never lost this. You see how it's attached? It's not going to get lost. So this is coarse powder, and you put this down the barrel. When you're done with that part, if you don't put this stopper back in, you risk the chance of a spark falling in here, and then you have a bomb going off on your hip. It's never happened, but I don't want it to either. So the powder goes down first. Then typically what's happening is that I'm chewing on a rag. I'm just going to use a piece of paper towel here, but this is in your mouth getting wet. You're chewing the rag. This is where chewing the rag comes from. That quit chewing the rag. You know, I need to get going. Chewing the rag, getting it wet with spit. You put that over the barrel. Then I'm just going to make a little ball here. You put your ball on top of the spit patch, and you start it by pushing the ball down into the hole level. Once it's level, you use the starter to get it. Whoops, I'm sorry. You are supposed to cut it off first.
Would you be dead by then?
Oh yeah. You cut this off, and that cuts off. Yeah, you're dead by now. And you have to be careful with all this stuff, because then you put this back in your mouth. I'm just going to put it back in here. Put your knife back. See that slit right there? Had my hand here one time, shoved it in. That's where that scar is right there. It's dangerous putting on these presentations. Then you start it down. The idea of using a starter is so you get it that far down, and it makes this job then easier. If you're trying to push a ball down, like right here, and this wiggles right, you break your ramrod, and all you have is a 10-pound club, like I mentioned before when Lewis only had that. So the ball is on the powder. Now you have to make sure it's going to fire. This is a set trigger. You'll hear a little click. You pull the hammer back to half cock. You find your priming powder. Yeah, I'm dead by now.
Like me trying to find my keys in my purse.
25 arrows.
Yeah.
And you put that priming powder. This is finer green powder. You put that. There's a deer. Click. Nothing happened.
You went off half cock.
Exactly. I was hoping somebody had that. No, I didn't plant him there. I don't even know your name. But you do put that back into the full cock position. And sometimes, then when you pull the trigger, you're going to see sparks. Let me show you. What we're talking about, sparks here. Look here. You just hold that. So you can sit it on the ground there.
Well, I
that's
just want to see what kind of weight
Oh, yeah.
you're carrying around.
It's about 10 pounds.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's-
it's about 10 pounds. This is what is happening in the gun with the lock and the steel. That plate and the jaws are holding a piece of flint. The flint comes this way, hits the steel, creates sparks down into the pan, in through a little hole, and boom, it goes. So the sparks I got some new English flint here. I'll see how it works. Yeah. So those are the sparks that you're going to see when we do this outside. And we'll see these sparks when we go to light this here. But if we see sparks, I'll be on the line firing, pull this up here and pull the trigger, and you'll see sparks. It's all show and no go. It's not going to work if it doesn't connect back here. What's that called then? All show and no go.
Flash in the pan.
Flash in the pan. He's just a flash in the pan. Lock, stock, and barrel. Get the lead out. Flash in the pan. Half cock. Oh, I failed to mention when I was taking my ramrod, driving it home. All of these terms come from the flintlock. This rifle, I said it wasn't from a kit. Frank helped me to, usually takes about 9 months to a year, working out in your workshop after work, weekends. 1 year, I think I got 6 times I got over to Frank's to work on this. I was chairman of PPR at church and working on my master's. And, yeah, I got there about 6 times. Long and short of it is, it took 16 years.
16 years.
When I went into camp with the organization that I belonged to, Tim, is that the gun that you were so long in the tooth making? Yeah, but it shoots true. I wish I could shoot it more often, but I think the last time I shot this side of the target, John, was when we went up there to that target range. I think that's the last time that we shouldered this and actually we shot it. But very accurate. At 100 yards, ought to be able to break somebody's glasses on the bridge. If you're holding steady and adjusting for wind and all that type of thing. And since I don't fire it very often, sometimes you flinch because you have an explosion going off right here. And I've been up on the line like this, and because of the hammer hitting. But when the guys start kidding you and they, Jim, did you hurt your knee? Then you start holding pretty steady. One time we were shooting King George, traditional shot that we do. It's a silhouette of King George. He's looking at you with his monocles and his rear end is all like this. And he's got his red coat on and all. And right there is where we put the target. Kind of like Meriwether Lewis. And you see who can get closest. Now there's a guy with a spotting scope and a guy with a target, and he's putting it down where they go. I got up on the line this one time, and my gun didn't work right. I was holding steady, but I wasn't throwing enough spark. I had to change the flint. Came back, and now there's a crowd. People that own the property have come out to watch this gun. And I'm thinking, oh, this is what I need. I don't do this that often, but I'm nervous and stuff. So I said, I don't care where the ball goes. I'm just going to stand here like a statue, pull the trigger. I pulled the trigger, made sure that it didn't flinch. The scorekeeper with the scope guy goes, I don't believe it. because they know I'm a weekend warrior. I don't do this all the time. And then he marks down where the shot was. It was that far off center. I won the ribbon for King George that year. Well, listen, if you'd like to, you're welcome to look at the map a little closer as we get up and around here, but we're going to go outside.